Have a listen to this. Have a listen to this.
Interest rates are higher. I know people don't like that, but you should be welcoming a stronger economy.
And maybe a deal has a point about the machinery of capitalism being oiled with the blood of the
The
worker.
United States is a country that has always paid all of its bills.
Lannister always pays his debts.
Don't let the bastards get you.
Hello and welcome to Comedian versus Economist. We demystify the world of money and help you get a handle on the bigger picture. My name's Adam and we're joined as always by my little older brother and real-life economist, Thomas. Hi, Thomas.
G'day, Adam. How you going?
Doing very well, thank you, Thomas. Massive show coming up, as always. French supermarkets are calling out shrinkflation, or as they call it, shrinkflation. We'll take a look at the economics of the dark and dangerous black markets and ask, do they make economics interesting? And sick of getting kicked off planes for banging in the toilets? Well, you might be pleased to hear there's now an adults-only airline. More on that later. I can't keep a straight face. But first, I can't believe, Thomas, it's only 9 years until the Brisbane Olympics. Danielle sent us a question via Instagram at CVE Podcast. Danielle was asking, what happens to house prices in Olympic host cities? Have you got any economics-y data on that?
No, not really. So there's a few.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, experts are divided. You'll be be sad to learn.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the stats that sort of get bandied about is like Sydney house prices rose 88% in the 5 years up to the 2000 Olympics.
88%?
Yes. Yeah.
That's enormous.
That's pretty big. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's no COVID, but it's still up there.
And then in the 11 years to Expo 88.
We can't compare the Sydney Olympics with Expo 88, surely.
It's pretty big if you're in Brisbane.
Yeah. Still, Olympics level. Was anyone travelling from London for Expo 88?
I think they used to. I think,
Did they?
yeah, there was a lot of investment, like the whole South Bank development in Brisbane came out of that. Yeah.
I remember we got a medal at school.
Yeah, right. Commemorative.
Every kid in Australia got a commemorative medal of, what was it, the centenary of Federation, the bicentenary of Federation.
Oh, yeah, for 88. Yeah.
88.
Way to create scarcity and value in the rare coins market. Were there many of these made? Oh, only every child in Australia.
I hung on to mine for ages, and every like couple of years I'd check the value on like eBay or whatever, and just found that it was literally the only coin ever issued that wasn't increasing in value. It wasn't even keeping up with inflation.
Yes, but yeah, so Brisbane house prices went up 238% in the 11 years up to Expo 88.
That must have been something else. No one was thinking about Expo 88 in 1977.
Yeah.
No one. That wasn't the chat at the local pub as everyone was sipping on their ponies at the happy hour.
Well, no. The reason we're talking 11 years there is that was the lead-in time. That's the runway from announcement to delivery of the expo.
I'm saying even at the time of the announcement, it would have been like, what?
I'm pretty sure it was in the newspapers.
Yeah, I know it would have been because news was news. But just because news is news, it doesn't mean people were like at all caring about it at that point.
Yeah,
they would have been like, cool. We're gonna have a big royal show in 1988.
I don't know. I don't know. It was kind of a big deal, but yeah. So, but the theory goes is you get same like expos with Olympics. You get a huge amount of investment in the city that sort of juices up the economy. You put the city on the international map, and that potentially creates more demand. But the hard thing to know is like, what's your time frame? Like, if it's an investment story, then that's going to reap benefits afterwards. If it's sort of like a buzz story, that's in the lead up immediately around.
But isn't one of the problems with the Olympics though that a lot of the infrastructure and stuff they build just goes unused. Isn't that the big problem? Like it costs cities billions of dollars to run the Olympics, and they never kind of recoup the money that they spend. Like it's really expensive to host. We did a podcast episode on this, I think, last year or sometime, looking at the profitability of the Olympics and going, there's no money in hosting an Olympics.
No. It seems like a dud investment. Yeah. But like in terms of house prices, like if it's
maybe people really still want to live next to a disused swimming pool.
It's a dud investment for the city putting it on, but for house prices, like if it's often it's used to sort of to run cover for infrastructure spending. So if you want to put in a train line and that's going to be expensive, and the public's like, seems like a lot of money, and then you go, oh well, there's an Olympics, we need it for the Olympics. Everyone's like, oh, all right, sure, we need a train line out to the outer suburbs.
Need to get King Kyle up to the starting blocks quickly. We can't have King Kyle stuck in traffic.
Yeah, so the numbers just aren't really there. Like you're talking about Sydney going up 88% in the 5 years to 2001. Melbourne went up 95%. And I think like the Olympics, must have an impact at the margin, but I just think it gets swamped by everything else.
Right.
Like interest rates and other things going on in the economy. But that said, like I think your question was about investing in Brisbane. Like I think if you could buy Brisbane property ETF versus a Sydney or Melbourne property ETF, I think now would be a good time to buy that for Brisbane. Like I think the things are looking strong for Brisbane
because of the Olympics, or just generally.
I think just generally. There's a few things going on in its favour. I think that the big one is that population's growing really strongly. So the Australian population overall is growing very strongly, but we're starting to see more of that head towards Brisbane. So in the year to March, population was up 124,000. That's 2.35%. That's the biggest increase on record, driven by strong overseas and internal migration. So stocks right down, new listings are down 13%. That's the biggest fall across the country. Total listings are down 20% over the year. That was on already very low levels. So there's a real lack of stock in the market. And then Brisbane's still relatively cheap. So the median Brisbane house price is only 54% of Sydney's median price. So it's still like, I just can't see that lasting. I can't see that differential being sustained over the long term, particularly if typically immigration flows when they come from overseas tend to land in Sydney and Melbourne. But I don't really understand the logic of that. I don't know what the reasoning there for that is. And if that starts to pivot towards Brisbane, and partly that might happen because it's cheaper, then that's going to sort of push Brisbane prices up. So I think Brisbane's looking pretty, like, of all its relative performance to the other capitals, I think is probably going to be pretty strong.
Well, you mentioned before that the Olympics really puts a city on the international map. Maybe that's why a lot of people coming from overseas are going to Sydney and Melbourne, is because Brisbane's not yet on the international map. And so they don't know it exists until they get here because it's not on the map. So I think once it gets on the map and the map's updated, then we could see an influx into Brisbane.
Yeah. Once they know how to find it.
Thomas, something that doesn't normally get a lot of headlines, shrinkflation has made the news this week. What's going on with shrinkflation? Or what is shrinkflation to start with?
So shrinkflation is when the price per unit of something rises because the volume of the package shrinks. And the price doesn't change. So, 100 grams of coffee becomes 75 grams of coffee, but the price doesn't change, but the price per gram has increased.
Right.
That's shrinkflation.
Yeah, and normally they often put it in the same packet that the 100 grams came in.
Yeah. Sometimes it gets a bit sneaky.
I remember this at school with tubes, if anyone remembers tubes chips. Quite enjoyed tubes back in the day, like a sauce flavored snack. And if you can imagine it. Yeah, and I remember that they went from, I think, 50 grams to 45 grams, but the packet was like identical. You just all of a sudden you got less.
Ah, right.
More air.
Yeah,
and tubes were already quite airy. They were not a very dense snack to begin with.
Yeah, so this has been a bit of a story post-COVID and part of the inflation story. But interestingly, so Carrefour, I'm not sure on the pronunciation of that.
Carrefour.
Carrefour. It's yeah. Nailed
I
it.
think my French accent credentials have just gone through the roof on this episode. Nailing it.
Yeah, well, that is they're France's second biggest supermarket, and they've taken to naming and shaming products with shrinkflation. So they're putting warning signs on it saying this product has seen its volume/weight fall and the effective price charged by the supplier rise.
That's annoyed a lot of people in the home brand department of Carrefour who are making products for the supermarket. They're like, oi. We're trying to sell some goods here. Stop putting your labels on the home brand stuff. I don't mind the Lipton, fine. Just stick it on the bottle, but leave the home brand out of this. Or Le Home brand, as it is in joke.
I love the quote from Stefan. Oh, you'll know this pronunciation. Stefan Bompé.
Bompé. You gotta get in there. Bompé.
Bompers reckons that the that's his nickname in the Aussie media.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, but he reckons he's like, obviously the aim in stigmatizing these products is to be able to tell manufacturers to rethink their pricing policy. The policy will stand until suppliers agree to cut their price.
Yeah, tough stance.
Pretty huge. Like, yeah, we're just out and out stigmatizing these products.
I like calling stuff out. Yeah, it's good. I think we should do it more. It's surprising to see it coming from the people who are selling the product, though. That's even better.
I know, right? This is the weird thing about it, right? Like, yeah, it's you're sticking the boot into your suppliers. So the suppliers would be like, "Oi,
Yeah.
look how cool that is." But like in Australia, if you were to pull this off, like I did a quick search for Carrefour's margins and I couldn't find anything. But like in the Australian context, with Woolies and Coles both bumping up their margins on pre-COVID levels, it'd be a bit rich to be like, "Oh, these guys are trying to make out some more, increase their margins on their products." I was like, well, that's what you guys are doing.
Yeah. And it's a kind of a, what do they call it? Like a symbiotic relationship. Like they both need each other, right? Like the suppliers need the supermarkets, but the supermarkets need the suppliers too. I mean, unless you stock home brand through everything. But
well, I think this is what someone was saying, like the Guardian was quoting Bronwyn Thompson, who's a sales strategist, saying that there's been a massive margin transfer over the last 20 years from suppliers to Coles and Woolies.
right.
And the reason for that is that Coles and Woolies dominate, 66% of the grocery market. I don't think you'd have that kind of concentration in any of the other products coming into the market. So the companies selling into Coles and Woolies, they're facing a very competitive market, so their margins are getting compressed because it's competitive. But Coles and Woolies can expand their margins because they dominate. There's almost a duopoly there.
Right. Yeah, interesting.
So it's a little bit like, to me, like without knowing the numbers, feels a bit like a marketing exercise. I feel like prices are probably going up throughout Carrefour, and then they're just pulling out some headline names and going like, "Oh, look, we're on the side of cheap prices and
we're
protecting consumers.
We're fighting for the battlers."
Yeah, we're going to name and shame these people with the shrinkflation. But it's like, yeah, but what are your margins and what's your market share? I don't know. It feels like a little bit of a.
I saw also there was a French newspaper called La Parisienne who called out the format of the Big Tasty. So the Big Tasty is a McDonald's burger that's sold in France. And they said that they'd noted that it had gone from 868 calories for the old version and now only has 663 calories for the same price. So even McDonald's, yeah. So like imagine not getting all the calories you paid for. They probably got caught out trying to I imagine it would have been like, why don't we just stuff extra salad in there? We'll just get some more lettuce, fill it out so it's the same size, but the calories were actually lower. So then people were going like, shrinking waistline tells me this is shrinkflation. But the other thing was the finance minister, Bruno Le Maire, announced a new law. So I saw he's forcing manufacturers to mark products reduced in weight. So that's he's putting it into law.
There you go.
So But I think his was more like if you're keeping everything else the same,
Yeah.
then that's illegal. That's duping the consumer. So we want them to get all the calories that they want. We'll take a break here on CVE and be back with more right after this. Welcome back. You're on Comedian versus Economist. And Thomas, it's time for our regular check-in with Border Force. What have they been up to lately?
Yeah. No, they've been busy. Australian busy force. Yeah, the AFR. I don't know why this is. The AFR submitted a freedom of information request. I don't know why this would have been restricted information or wouldn't be public. It makes me think that ABF told them to put in an information request. But what they're saying is they've seized 1 billion illegal cigarettes worth $1.1 billion in foregone tax over the past 2 years. There's an illicit tobacco task force.
Oh, right. I thought you meant like in one sting, like it was just a big, like they seized 1 billion cigarettes. I'm like, that's impressive. Where do you even hide 1 billion cigarettes? There's a lot of teddy bears with cigarettes up their bums.
Yeah, so that's 2 years. 1 billion cigarettes in 2 years. But there was a 2-day blitz in August that seized 1.5 million cigarettes.
Wow. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So pretty massive, and that's not counting chop. So all like the tobacco packets.
Oh, just like a roll your own sort of.
Yeah. Yes, talking to my mate Paul. Shout out to Paul. He's a fan of the show. He's saying like there's a huge. He showed me a chop packet, and it's like it looks exactly like tobacco. What you'd expect tobacco to look like. It's got a health warning. It's got like a picture of a gangrenous foot. It's got all this stuff.
You'd think they would try to make their product slightly more attractive.
Yeah.
Like, given that they're obviously not subject to the same government regulations because it's black market tobacco.
Well, yeah, but they're trying to sneak it in alongside the legal tobacco, and then it's being sold in like corner shops around Australia.
Oh, so it's like a direct kind of counterfeit product that we're talking here, it's not just black market tobacco, it's counterfeit tobacco being passed off as...
No, it's not being passed off as like a legal tobacco, but it's like, the brand is illegal. It's not pretending that, but it's got the pictures on it, so it looks like it's gone through government regulation. So it's like, it looks like it, and you buy it.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know and you bought it from your corner store, you might think that it was properly regulated. And that's what my mate Paul was saying. Like, you got no idea how this stuff's been grown or the chemicals involved or anything, any idea of what's happening in the supply chain at all. And then it's being sold on the market, and because there's not paying taxes on it, it can undercut the market because it can just be cheaper.
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't realize that was even a thing. So that's happening all across Australia.
Yeah, and it seems to be having a big impact. Like, they was saying that supermarket sales, Woolworths tobacco sales were down 16% over the last year.
Right.
So that's a pretty big drop.
Hang on, tobacco sales being down, doesn't that also say maybe that anti-smoking advertising might be working too? And like generally, or that vaping is increasing? I see a lot of people vaping nowadays.
That's true. 16% a year though, that's a pretty big drop.
A lot of people vaping though. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've got some data. I've seen a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, vapes are another one. Like, they're not legal either, but they're being sold in the same stores. And it's sort of like it's just falling between the cracks. Like, there's sort of federal laws against it. It's on the states to enforce it, and it's just sort of slipping through the cracks.
So what's the lesson here then?
I think the interesting thing here is so part of this problem has been created because we're taxing cigarettes so much. Yeah, and in the May budget, there's increased the excise another 16% over the 3 years. So an average packet price of 25 cigarettes will go from just under $40 to about $50 over the next 4 years. That's just on the taxes.
$50? Is that where cigarettes are at now? I used to smoke when I was like 20, and I remember like $12 or $15 maybe. $40.
Yeah. No, 50, and going up to 50. And so because of this price point, you create the incentive for black markets, because black markets because it's now profitable enough to import chop from wherever it's coming from. At the same time, on the demand side, it's become a lower socioeconomic kind of thing because it's people who are addicted to cigarettes who just go, oh, okay, I've just got to pay whatever price it is. And so you have a sort of a low socioeconomic demand cohort meeting a black market supply chain. You kind of have a situation like this. So if you're going to have like high taxes, means you got to complement that with enforcement. No, I don't think we're quite.
Right.
I think we're missing that, and I think that's probably what I reckon Australian Border Force has organised this freedom of information request through the AFR to highlight this and to put pressure on the states to enforce the laws. My guess.
Yeah, right. I mean, obviously it's a complicated issue, right? Like, I don't know, rather than taxing, like, I don't know, I just think couldn't we do more about reducing people's dependency on cigarettes rather than taxing the cigarettes that exist more and more and more? Like, can't we get like nicotine patches on Medicare or something? I don't know. Like, I'd be supportive of that. Like, because it's not just it's a cost to society as well through smoking related illness and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, taxes isn't the only thing. Like, there's a lot of advertising. There's bans on advertising, all that sort of stuff. The cigarettes behind the shutters, so you can't actually see the products. All that stuff is having its impact.
Yeah. But I think the other thing we could do too is not call it Chop Chop. That's kind of
cool, isn't it?
It's a cool name. I think we need to come up with a much more boring name than Chop Chop. That sounds fun. All right. All right, Thomas, finally on the show. I am excited about this one. Leave it to those sexy Dutch to make a sexy airline. What's this I hear about an adults-only airline?
Yeah, so the Dutch airline Corendon Airlines has announced that it's going to launch an adults-only section.
Oh, just an adults-only section, not a chartered flight, adults-only.
No.
That could get a bit wild, I guess.
Yeah.
You need some responsible people with kids to keep everyone under control.
That's right. I'm trying to sleep back here.
Just someone running nude down the aisle.
Yeah.
I've got kids in the back still. Right.
Yeah.
I like this though. I was calling for this years ago when I was a younger person and flying, and just thinking I would definitely pay to go on an airline or in a section that didn't have kids.
Yeah,
definitely.
Would you pay 10%? That's what they're charging. So on a flight that costs 660 €660 flight, they're going to cost for an extra €45, so less than 10%. You get to sit in the adults only section.
Double it. I'd pay double that easily. 20%, no dramas.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure how Anna would feel about it now because she'd have to be in the back with the kids. But to me, that's what 20% easy covers it. The value.
Just dipping into her grocery money. Buy you a extra legroom child-free seat.
Oh, can you imagine? I'd be flying everywhere. I'd go to places I didn't even need to go.
Yeah. So they're trialing this. They don't have a business class or a first class on this flight. So, because I think like normally if you go business class, that's the way to get out of the kid zone.
Yeah, but then there's no guarantee there won't be kids in business class. Like rich people have kids.
Do they? Yeah, do they? I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's right.
You might not have flown business class, Thomas, like some of us, but I did it once, of course. Everyone's got that story of when they flew business class. I did it once on our honeymoon because Anna's uncle worked for Qantas at the time and he was able to get us a free upgrade for our honeymoon. Yeah, no, I think there's nothing stopping you bringing kids into business class.
Right.
I don't think. I correct us on that, CVE@equitymates.com. So the question is then, why has it taken us so long, do you think? Why haven't we seen this before? Because it seems like an obvious value proposition.
It is an obvious idea, isn't it? Like you've got extra leg room, you've got getting out early and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if, I reckon the airlines already have a policy of pushing babies and kids towards the back of the plane.
Mm.
And I wonder if it's what the message that it sends. Like I'm thinking of in the 90s, Japan had a problem of what they call chikan, of sexual harassment on their trains because the trains are so packed. And then men would use that as a way to cop a feel. Because of the way shame worked, women wouldn't call it out and just became this huge problem. And so they took all these measures to deal with it. One of them was that they created women-only carriages. And so it's like, well, we'll protect the women and women can go in the women-only carriages. But the thing was, you had like peak hour, like you couldn't choose to be in a women-only carriages. And seemed like sexual assault actually went up because the men went, well, if you decide to be in the not in the non-molestation carriage, then you've signed up for the molestation carriage.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay. That's bad.
So it's sort of a bit of an unintended consequence. And I wonder if, like if you said that you have you have the adult section implies you've got a kids section, and maybe in the kids section, people are like, well, everyone's going to let my kids run amok. Because
it's a ball pit. Just there's no seats, there's just swings.
But it's like, I'm not going to tell my kids to be quiet or to stop kicking the seats because everyone here has obviously signed up to be in the kids section. Therefore, they're okay with my kids just running amok. Maybe.
But this is where I think they could. Like there's maybe like a marketing strategy here where you go, look, it's 10% pre-flight if you want to go in the adults only section. It then goes up to 50% once you've sat down and had a look around, seen who's in the surrounding seats. And then if you still want to go to the adults only section at that point, it's 50%. That would be a money spinner because it's at that point in that situation where you're like, I would pay my left leg to get away from this kid who's behind me. Sorry, Anna, I'm moving forwards. All right. I reckon that does it for this week's CVE. Thank you so much for tuning in. As I mentioned, you can send us an email, cve@equitymates.com, or via Facebook and Instagram @CVE Podcast, or via the website, equitymates.com. The other thing we'd love you to do is to go and leave us a review wherever you get your podcast. Thomas sounds like he's typing away. He's leaving us a review right now.
The comedian sucks. His jokes are derivative. Poor taste.
He was a bit racist with his French accent. All right, we'll leave it there. If you could do one or all of those things, we'd love it. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time on Comedian versus Economist. It's bye for now.
Comedian vs. Economist is a product of Equity Mates Media. All information in this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional finance, legal, or tax advice. The hosts of Comedian vs. Economist are not financial professionals and are not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Before making any financial decisions, you should read the product disclosure statement and, if necessary, consult a licensed financial professional. Do not take financial advice from a podcast. For more information, head to the disclaimer page on the Equity Mates website where you can find ASIC resources and find a registered financial professional near you. In the spirit of reconciliation, Equity Mates Media and the hosts of Comedian vs. Economist acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today.